What kind of fire?
Bamboo fire makes so.
Bamboo fire, what kind of fire?
Bamboo fire makes so.
Bamboo fire, what kind of fire?
Bamboo fire makes so. Bamboo fire, hot fire.
Bamboo fire makes so, he makes so.
Bamboo fire, hot fire.
Bamboo fire makes so, he makes so.
Bamboo fire,
Bamboo fire makes so, he makes so.
bamboo fire,
Bamboo fire makes so, he makes so. 6 o'clock and the thing not ready.
bamboo fire makes so.
6 o'clock and the thing not ready.
Bamboo fire makes so.
6 o'clock and the thing not ready.
Bamboo fire makes so.
6 o'clock and the thing not ready.
Bamboo fire makes so. Man come home and the pot not done yet.
Bamboo fire makes so, he makes so.
Man come home and the pot not done yet.
Bamboo fire makes so, he makes so.
Man come home and the rice not fire.
Bamboo fire makes so, he makes so.
Man come home and the rice not fire.
Bamboo fire makes so, he makes so. Bamboo fire, hot fire.
Bamboo fire makes so.
Bamboo fire, hot fire.
Bamboo fire makes so.
Bamboo fire, hot fire.
Bamboo fire makes so.
Bamboo fire, hot fire.
Bamboo fire makes so. Give me the water be out of the fire.
Bamboo fire makes so, he makes so.
Give me the water be out of the fire.
Bamboo fire makes so, he makes so.
Give me the water be out of the fire.
Bamboo fire makes so, he makes so.
Give me the water be out of the fire.
Bamboo fire makes so, he makes so.
Bamboo fire makes so. Bamboo fire makes so. Bamboo fire makes so. Bamboo fire makes so. Makes so.
All right, hey, guess what? It's 7:03 in Guyana. I'm sure the time is different wherever else you are listening to this show. We'll just give you guys just 2 seconds to share the link, and we appreciate that. But let's get straight down into business. Let me just say that I hope that you're having a great, Sunday so far. And we just thought that we have this special program. It's just going to be for an hour because we know that you have other stuff that you may want to do. And we do appreciate your time. And again, we thank you all so much for sharing the link. Coming up in just a few minutes is Dr. Vincent Adams. You'll get to see my face shortly, but there's a reason why I have this particular photograph of the Essequibo farmers protesting. This, I do believe, was back in 2013 or 2014, right? It's not the recent protest. We know the recent protest, what it's about. We know that every time the PPP is in office, the people of Essequibo, in fact, the people all across Guyana have to go through what they do. Let me just take the time out to acknowledge a few of you. If you don't hear your name mentioned, do not get upset and do not withdraw the sharing of the link. It means that if I don't mention your name, don't get vexed, don't suck your teeth and say you're not sharing the link with anybody. But I'd like to say, Buxtonians are at times very jealous people. When you don't mention them first, they get upset. But Miss Booker, Denise Booker, good evening to you. We'll start off with you first. Then I see there is Brenda. Well, we have a lot of Brenda, maybe 2 or 3 Brendas on our show. One of them is Brenda Braithwaite. In Guyana, we say Braffit, but you come to America and it's Braithwaite. And we say Heather. Heather, how are you? Good evening to you as well. Nicole Cole, my friend, I haven't seen you in quite a long time. I have to get you on the show. Honorable Commissioner Nicole Cole, good evening to you. Let me see some guys now. I don't want the guys to get jealous. Hi, Gladys. How are you? Gladys Prasad, how are you doing? And then we have Garfield Collins. Good evening to Garfield. Garfield is saying good evening to Mark and Lemon. Good evening to you, Garfield. And then we have Marl Joseph. Good evening, Marl. Don Sullivan. And then we have also Desiree. We have quite a few Desiree. And then there's a Desiree Simon Liverpool. Good evening to you. June Chase. And the list can go on and on and on. For those of you who haven't heard your names, don't get upset. Just don't get upset at all. Nigel McKenzie. Nigel McKenzie, indeed. Thanks for tuning in, Nigel, to this special program this evening. Nigel McKenzie. I don't know. I've got to give you a call, Nigel. Hope all is well with you at your end. Let me see who else that I can say a quick hello to. Stanborn. We know you guys are regular listeners. And Troy Daniels, Sheila George. Good evening to all of you. Every single one of you. All right. And again, thank you so much for sharing the link. I know it's Sunday evening. Let's see. What can we talk about this evening? Good evening to all of you. My name is Mark Benshap. And there's a reason why we have this show, what is called a rapid response. And what is a rapid response? It simply means it works in politics. When politicians lie, you've got to basically take a slinging shot and you deal with those lies. You bring them back to ground, ground zero, or, you rip them to pieces. They're falling apart, like how some folks love to say what is happening in other people's countries and what is falling apart and what is not falling apart. I don't know. Good evening to Conrad August is saying that you didn't go to church today. It's after 8. All right, it's after 8. So nice of you to tune in. Ewart Eastman in Atlanta. All the folks are tuning in. Lizzie Simon, how are you doing? Patricia Tisu. Hi, Patricia. How are you? Brent Mentor. Brent Mentor, it is important that we do this, right? It is important because the truth of the matter is when the politicians peddle their lies and their propaganda, and the other set of politicians sit back and they say, he's crazy. Jagdeo is crazy. There's no need to respond to those lies. I take umbrage to that because maybe I deal with more politics outside of Guyana, and so I understand how it operates. But the politicians that we have, for the most part, mind you, in Guyana, they ignore these things and they feel that they have a better strategy. In all ways, for them, it's a better strategy. And that's not the strategy, right? But every time, I want to promise you guys this, on 107.1 FM, every time Jagdeo lies or Irfan Ali lies, we will expose those lies and we will break those lies down to pieces for you guys. So we are not going to take a position that we are going to ignore them. It is just not going to happen. Reneer Caesar, how are you doing? I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. What Reneer is saying here, I expected the opposition to take this issue seriously and call out Jagdeo. We all do, because Mr. Caesar, that is what the opposition is there to do. Not to sit down and play pretty boy politics and nice boy politics to feel that the US is going to love them or Exxon is going to love them and these manner of things. No, it's not going to work. Because remember, people, once you can calm political leaders down, they love that. They love that. And we hope that we're not seeing the opposition, the very same opposition some complain about, that issue press releases and just press conferences, and that's it. I'm being a little naughty for Sunday evening, but good evening to all of you. I'm awaiting the arrival of Dr. Vincent Adams. That's why you'll hear me talking a little bit. But I want to share something with you. And this has to do with, it has to do with Donald Ramotar, right? And we're talking propaganda here, mind you. And I want you guys to be able to hear the sort of propaganda that these guys, they have no shame in spreading this sort of propaganda. So listen briefly to this propaganda whilst we continue. And seeing some of your comments again, Rene Caesar is saying the coalition needs to be more proactive. We're giving them ideas and they're not listening. They don't want to listen. They just don't want to listen, Mr. Caesar. And that is a fact. They just don't want to listen. They feel that they know it all. They know it all. That is all I'll say. They feel that they know it all, but we have a responsibility. I, as the host of this show and the station, management of the station, 107.1 FM, our responsibility is to report to you guys, right? And if we find that the politician lying, as in the case of Jagdeo and the PPP, we will expose those lies. We are not going to sit and wait for opposition people or opposition politicians to shoot down those lies. We're not going to do that. We're going to do our thing. All right. So I want you guys to listen to this. The lies of what's this guy? Donald Ramotar. Right. I want you guys to listen to that, and then we'll prepare to have our guest on. Hopefully in another 10 minutes. So you still have 10 minutes to hear me talk, right? We still have another 10 minutes for that. So here's what I want to do. Let's get straight into where is Lemon? Is he with us today, or he's just good? So let's get to this one here. And you'll hear what?
New information technology. When we were in India, myself and Elizabeth Harper, when we were in India, we had a meeting with Prime Minister Modi. And you know India is a powerhouse in information technology. And he will build right in Guyana, right in our country. We will build a world-class cutting-edge ICT park right in Guyana to be the headquarters of the Caribbean and South America. And we will ensure that in every region we have those mini parks all over so that all our people will be able to benefit and acquire the skills.
All right, let's break that down for you, because we all know it's a lie, right? And here's the lie. For 23 years, they've been in office, right? Donald Ramotar was also the one of the directors of Gaisuco. He was also the general secretary of the PPP, and they weren't concerned about these IT hubs and so forth. They were never concerned about that. And in the elections manifesto of the PNC, these are the things they spoke about. And so Donald Ramotar at Kitty, at that campaign rally, promised the people that they will have these IT hubs. It's an idea that they stole from the coalition. They never did these things for 23 years since they've been in office. You go out in the remote areas of Guyana when the PPPC were in office, those things never happened. The IT hubs that we see now and that they're benefiting from is as a result of the coalition government. That's just what it is. The truth is what it is. And so these people just lie and they lie and they lie and they lie. They don't care what they lie about. Let's go back into 2013, and I'm reading from what the people say, a report from Stabrook News back in 2013, interviews and so forth. Stabrook News recently visited Linden, and while there asked the man, woman in the street about the issues affecting them in Linden in 2013. That was when Donald Ramotar was the minority president of Guyana. He spoke with one Ian Jacobis, an unemployed man who said, in Linden, under the PPP regime. And now there's a reason why I'm talking about that, because Jagdeo, in a recent interview, talked about all the economic developments and what they have done for the people of Guyana during their terms in office and all manner of things. But then again, the opposition remains silent on these lies upon lies upon lies. Ian Jacoby's out in Linden said, there are no jobs in Linden. The roads, if you need to go somewhere, depending on where you're going, you have to leave home, giving yourself enough time to navigate. No jobs. Lynette Adams says, our roads are in a very bad state, rainy season, and so forth and so on. Lots of things. Kirk Sue spoke about the power outages, the water that goes off in the middle of the day, all manner of things. Look, there is a Edward Welcome, a retiree. We need jobs for youngsters. That is what people were crying out. They need jobs. They need all manner of things for the people of Region 10. So, it is important to basically, rip those lies apart, to let the people know that, hey, it is not true. It is just not true what the PPP is saying. They were never concerned about the people of Guyana. And now let's touch on this guy for a moment. In an interview on the DPI, that is the propaganda network of the installed regime, right? And they spend hundreds of millions of dollars to spread the propaganda, to spread the lies, and so forth and so on. That is what they do. So I want you to listen to a portion. I know some of you might suck your teeth. It's okay. It's okay. I can understand because you don't like to see the guy. I understand that, right? But I want you to hear a little bit of the lies from this guy. I do want you guys to hear a little bit of the lies.
Leave us with much to address the pandemic, and so we had to address that. So it's been a full period, almost I keep saying to people, this is like one long night or one long day for us. But we did not get to do the things on the ground. The president went out a lot. He's been very, very active on the ground and in the planning process. A lot of ministers went out. But we still had an issue of not bringing large numbers of people together because of the pandemic. Now that the restrictions have been lifted, we can now hit the ground once again in earnest. And that is why I went to the Essequibo coast, meeting people. They've been asking me to go there for a while. And I thought it important to give people explanations. Like we did in 2015 when we lost the elections, we went to the ground and told people why. So we had to explain to people the challenges we face now in government, a bit of what ACNUM left us, and how a bit about their philosophy, their negative attitude in government, and now in opposition. And we wanted to tell people about the new challenges that COVID caused, like the cost of living and what we're doing, etc. So that is what happened on the
All right. So, hey.
Essequibo coast. So we focus heavily on.
Sorry about that. So here's what's happening, right? Here is what's happening. The lies, and I'm looking at some of your comments. He's now talking about that they're focusing on the Essequibo coast, right? The same Essequibo coast where rice farmers and this was back in 2013 or 2014. Every time the PPPC is in office, whether through rigged elections or whatever, the people of Essequibo punish. In fact, the people of Guyana punish. They continue to punish. And that's exactly what it is. That's what it's about. Come on, guys, let's focus on the message. Let's focus on ripping the message from this vagabond, the lies by Jagdeo. And let us focus. I don't want to see some of you saying that I'm making your Sunday bad. And let's focus. Let's remain focused here, right? So these folks protest every time. But here's what Jagdeo said. Here's what he said to the people of Essequibo. he spoke of cost of living and so forth and so on under the PPPC regime, right? He also spoke about the VAT and so forth, and let me focus on what lives he said to the people of Essequibo, right? He spoke about jobs. He said then that they are going to get 8,000 jobs, 8,000 jobs in Essequibo shortly. Remember, they've promised the people of Guyana 50,000 jobs. And if you look at the 5 years now, if they are going to be in office for 5 years, I doubt that. They started off 2 years now since they've been installed. What amount of jobs? Not even 5,000 jobs, not even 2,000 jobs. So every time this guy goes around, he's lying. He's lying to the people of Guyana. And we've got to talk. We've got to talk about the lies. We've got to talk about the lies. And when we talk about the lies, look, they got Kumar Singh. Kumar Singh is already here. Kumar Singh is saying, you guys no good. You guys no good, okay, PNCRAFs. I don't know. Look, we speak English in Guyana, but let's go back with Kumar Singh. Kumar Singh. You guys no good. You guys no good. Guyana, okay, PNCRAFs. I don't know. What the heck is he trying to say? I don't know. Maybe when Dr. Vincent Alexander comes on, I'll ask him to break this down. Here, Kumar is disagreeing. He doesn't know what the heck he's disagreeing about, but he's just saying, you guys no good. You guys no good. Guyana, okay, PNCRAFC. You guys no good. Okay, enough of him and his crap, man, right? But these guys are something else. These guys, they don't have no shame. Anyways, 8,000 jobs Jagdeo is talking about for the people of Essequibo. 8,000 jobs. I don't know where they're going to find that 8,000 jobs from, right? Where are they going to find the 8,000 jobs? Since they've been in office, they haven't even given the people of Guyana 2,000 jobs. But here's what Jagdeo is saying, and breaking down the lies again, breaking down the lies. He says after the 2020 elections, the country was shut down for 3 months. And in other words, what he's saying, during the 3 months that the country was shut down, over 30,000 Guyanese lost their jobs. Now, wait a minute. Over 30,000 Guyanese lost their jobs? What's the source? Where is the evidence, Jagdeo? Lies upon lies upon lies to the people of Essequibo and the people of Guyana. And then he went on, right? Lies, of course. Where? No source, no facts, no evidence, nothing. Lies. 30,000. You know what it is to have in a country 30,000 jobs? 30,000 jobs lost? Come on. Then this is what he said. That during that period, when they took office, that 75,000 to 80,000 people were unemployed. 80,000 persons were unemployed. Where is the evidence? What is your source, Bara Jagdeo? And now let's go back to 2013, when the people of Linden, right? The people of Linden, Region 10. And what is it that they were saying? There are no jobs in Linden. The road's bad. There's no proper water. Another person said that our roads are in a bad state. No jobs for young people. Power outages. Water system sucks. You name it. Every single thing. This other, a young Lindener by the name of Letitia Phillips, she's probably way older now, since 2013. She said unemployment is very high in Linden, and the school system is in need of development. Young people, unemployment, very, very high. But yet these folks, right, feel comfortable, feel that they can lie to all of you. Jagdeo feels that he can lie upon lies upon lies. Savitri Prasad, Hi, Savitri. Good evening. Savitri saying, I never know the country shut down. Wonder in what way them wicked. Savitri. So true. Shut down? What shut down? But then again, look, let's go on, Savitri and others. Y'all forget about Kumar. Forget about Kumar, right? Kumar done gone. Kumar is a Katahar, right? Those of you who know Katahar. Somebody say, hey, you're a Katahar. Kumar is a Katahar. Forget about him. And then let's go back to the pandemic lies. I noticed that Dr. Vincent Adams making the same mistake that Jagdeo makes. He addresses Vincent Adams as Vincent Alexander. I must apologize. I mean, both good gentlemen, they both have contributed tremendously to Guyana. So it's not an insult, but it's an insult if somebody, mistakenly addressed me as Mark Jagdeo. I'll be very pissed off about that. I don't want to be in that category at all. Sunil Pandey. Sunil, good evening to you, man. Here Sunil is saying, highlight the APNU progress in office. Of course. Sunil, compared to the 23 years of the PPPC, compared to the 2 years since they've been installed, you don't want me to highlight the progress, right? Lots and lots of progress, my friend. Lots of progress. Don't you agree with me, Sunil? Or are we disagreeing with each other here? Or you just want me to highlight the fact that the water system has never been better under the coalition? You want me to talk about extrajudicial killings? I will talk about that. Better. Fishermen enjoyed their livelihoods under the coalition. School children. Jagdeo in Essequibo spoke about $25,000 now the PPPC they're giving to school children, and that the coalition removed that $25,000. Now, Sunil Pandey, let me say this to you. Under the coalition, they may have reduced or may have removed the $25,000. But what Jagdeo and the PPPC wouldn't say to you guys is that they have added over $100 and something thousand more, sending kids to school for free, easing the burden on their parents, especially single mothers. The guys, sugar workers up on the quarantine, go and interview them. The facts are there. Some of you wouldn't be able to accept the fact. But $25,000 per year, and Jagdeo sees that as a success story? Come on, man. Sunil, how are you going to do this to me? I know you watch the program often, but how are you going to do this to me, man? Don't do that. Don't do it. Then Jagdeo spoke the pandemic lies. Here is where, let me talk about the pandemic lies. He said that from March 20 to August 20, the emergency hospital, they had to ensure that they bought oxygen machines, right? They had to buy, vaccines. Well, we know the vaccine, right? The Sputnik, hundreds of millions of dollars. To this day, he can't tell us, we can't have an audit of that, right? Lies again. But let's get back to the COVID hospital as it is known. And since Sunil asks about progress, under the coalition, right? Guess what? That is where they converted a broke-down hotel and they turned it into the COVID hospital. And when the coalition did that, it was Jagdeo and his folks, them bawling out, oh, it's a waste of money. COVID-19 is fake, and all manner of things, that it is not important. And so they didn't give a damn about the hospital. They badmouthed the hospital. And so when the coalition got out of office by force, guess what? About 22 or 23 persons died. But when the PPP took over, hundreds upon hundreds of persons have died. And the very COVID-19 hospital that Jagdeo is talking about that they equipped, they didn't do that. It was activism on this show and other shows that made them, because of shamefaced in the latter stages of the pandemic, they rushed to buy oxygen machines. Lying Jagdeo. right? We can go on and on with his lies. He lied about the VAT, water. He says that the coalition, right? Here's what he said. The coalition increased VAT on water and electricity. Sorry, guys, that I'm sounding a bit like him, right? He said that the coalition introduced VAT on water and electricity. But what he didn't say, that is why Jagdeo loves to be interviewed by kunumunus, guys who don't know better, guys who interviews him, and they skin their teeth and they laugh up because that is all they can do. They're accustomed to sucking up. You look at those who interview Jagdeo, all of them suck up to Jagdeo, right? And so that person who interviewed him about Essequibo, well, he is notorious when it comes to sucking up, right? They weren't able to challenge Jagdeo on these issues. So here what? Jagdeo said that it is the coalition that introduced introduced VAT on water, right? VAT on water, VAT on electricity. That is true, right? That is true. That is true. But what Jagdeo didn't say is that the very coalition removed the taxes on VAT and water. Water improved, electricity improved under the coalition government. But what he didn't say is that the ordinary working class folks were the ones who they weren't the ones paying taxes, because in order for your water to be taxed, you had to have consumed lots and lots of barrels of water, right? And the other thing with electricity, if your electricity bill was over 10,000 Guyana dollars, that is when VAT applied. But he didn't want to say that. He gave this impression that it was across the board and the coalition was so mean to the Guyanese people. How dare you introduce VAT on water, VAT on electricity, and so forth and so on. They even introduced VAT on private school, right? But all of those things, Jagdeo is not going to say that they have been removed by the very coalition that introduced them, but not to be a burden on poor people. Because if you're burning $10,000+ in electricity every month, it means that you get a bunch of things in your house, right? But thankfully, the coalition removed the taxes. Water improved under the coalition. Electricity improved under the coalition. Let's talk about VAT. It was the PPP who introduced 16% burdensome VAT on the Guyanese people. All of their supporters, everyone were complaining. They're not going to remind people, they're not going to tell people that it was Jagdeo. He was the one under his government that 16% VAT was increased, was forced down the throat on the people. 15% VAT. We noticed that the trench crappers, they're all coming out. The trench crappers are coming out because you know what? When they hear and they see the truth, it hurts them. Their bumps raise up. They get ticklish. They can't take it. I don't know what it does to them, right? But the truth, it does something to them. If something it does to them. But it's what time is it? 35 minutes after 7 o'clock. My name is Mark Bensharp, right? But it's important that we remind you guys of the lies and break the lies down. That is what we'll do here on Straight Up and on 107.1 FM. Break the lies down. Tomorrow morning on our show, we should be back on the air. Tomorrow morning with the Gabby show, the mid-morning with Gabby, and her selector, Andre. Tomorrow's guest is the youngster, Elson Lowe. Elson Lowe will continue on the economy. But for now, let's get to the gas, oil and gas. And the man who can comment about that who has the experience and the qualifications, is my guest this evening, Dr. Vincent Adams. Dr. Adams, good evening to you, sir.
Hey, good evening, Mark. Nice being with you again, and with the nice listeners that you've got out there. Hopefully, we can break down some of these lies, as you said, which has now become an art of the vice president.
Let me ask you this, Dr. Vincent Adams, as a professional, when you see people like Jagdeo jumping on whether it's radio or TV, and he's lying. We all know that he's lying. Most folks in the audience know that he's lying. How does that make you feel, sir, as a professional?
Well, it first of all, I feel embarrassed. I've got great respect for all of the offices of the land, the people who are supposed to be honest with us, our leaders. I mean, that's one of the major tenets of leadership, to be honest and open with the people that you lead. So when I hear this, I it just gives my mind, it's mind-boggling. And as well as I do, we grew up in the age where the worst thing you can do is tell a lie. So I don't know which generation the vice president grew up in, but it makes, it really galls me, and it really embarrasses me, and it makes me really ashamed of having such leadership who just seems to be their modus operandi to lie like this. It's shocking.
And not only shocking that he's not being put in check, so to speak, as quickly as possible. How does that make you feel that this guy is allowed to lie and he just, that's it? He gets away.
It's very, very frustrating. And I've got examples upon examples, and I don't know if he's smart enough in the way that he's been lying sometimes, because I see it as a distraction sometimes to get away from the main issues. And then he seems to be taking the media down these rat holes, as a distraction, a nice shiny object. And then everybody follows that. In the meantime, here it is that, that it's just a distraction to get away from the main issues. So for example, just the oil industry just starting up. Liza 2, for example, that was start up without meeting the legal requirement.
Dr. Vincent Adams, before we get to that, I want you to break down this NRF board, right? Yeah. And the fact that it now has a couple of the guys, your name was one of that was put forward, Dunstan Barrow, and also
Christopher Ram.
The PPP decided that the best of the three is Dunstan Barrow. Break down this NRF board and how Jagdeo is trying to make it look as though they're the ones that will be making all of the decisions and so forth, and it's the best that he has. Explain the NRF board and the members.
Well, as you recall, in the previous administration, they had set up a framework for having 22 members of the board to represent all aspects, all walks of life in the country. Represented from each organization, from the bottoms right up to the top. Of course, this administration decided, that's too much representation. So they've now reduced it. What is it now? 8 or 9? I can't remember. But nevertheless, so they gin up this farce of, okay, we're gonna ask the opposition to nominate or to get representatives on the board and on the committee. Well, of course, the opposition went out there and looked for the best qualified. So they they submitted, I think it was 5 names to start with. It ended up with 2 names, myself and Christopher Ram. So when my name was put forward as the one for the board, it was kind of funny, Mark. They said, well, he doesn't have financial experience, of course. They pull out my CV, and here it was, I managed billions of dollars of US dollars, which is more than the US government, more than the Guyana government manages. Then on top of that, I've got, in addition to my other technical degrees, I have a, I had I have a diploma, postgraduate diploma from the best, probably the best business school in the world at Sloan Business School at MIT. So they said, well, how about legal? They said, well, okay, if Vince is not allowed, but by the way, this Dunstan Barrow, how did Dunstan Barrow meet that requirement of having a legal background? They said, well, here we have Christopher Ram, who's a lawyer. They said, no, let's put it to a vote. So of course, they've got the vote. So it's all a sham. But Mark, the vice president said it all yesterday. He made a profound statement. You know what he said? He said, in defending this, he said, we want diversity, but not political diversity. Now, you know what that translates to? It says that anybody who does not support or who did not vote politically for that party, you will never be counted to have input. So that, it might have slipped out of his mouth, but that's exactly how he feels. So that tells the whole story there, Mark, that they have no intention. We see it in all of the committees. There's no input from anybody who may not look as if they're supporting the party to begin with, and who they believe that does not support. So it doesn't matter your qualification, Mark. It's irrelevant as far as your qualification goes, as far as they're concerned.
All right, and we do get that because they spoke of a legal background. Dunstan Barrow doesn't have a legal background. The man who, and I'm not sure if he has a financial background in terms of expertise. I don't know, but he certainly doesn't have a legal background, and neither does Duku, that is representing the so-called private sector commission. But
Mark, before
so,
I want to jump in. I want to help you out here a little bit.
Sure.
And
help I want to give them
we got to give them some credit here too. We got to be fair. The 30,000. I think you mentioned they said they had 30,000 unemployment during. Well, how many thousands did they lay off when they got into office? How many thousands like myself did they lay off? So maybe that's what they're counting. So I just wanted to add that there to make sure that they get that they get some credit for supporting their numbers.
Doc, but one of the things though, the evidence is there that 3,000 plus persons they sent home as soon as they got into office. But yet Jagdeo talks about 30,000 folks who were lost their jobs during the pandemic, especially under the coalition. That is not true. That is a lie. What's his source? This guy could just lie, sit there, and he lies, but he's not taken up to task.
Yep.
We know of the 3,000 plus persons who lost their jobs. We know, and you being one of them as well. So this NRF board, how comfortable are you with the board, the makeup, and that they will be transparent, and that Jagdeo wouldn't have control of that board?
Well, the thing, and this is nothing personal against the board members, but it's the process. And there's no question in my mind that as a board that is already fixed to do whatever Mr. Jagdeo and the PPPC wants. I mean, it's obvious, which means that there will be no input or no diverse opinions from the other side, the people who are highly qualified. So, and especially in the most important sector that is going to be driving this economy, you would have thought that any rationale or any good leader who's really interested, by the way, in the country would have had that diverse opinion, to look after the interests. I cannot believe, Mark, that here's a government that has a margin of one seat in parliament and is behaving as if they've got 100 seats in parliament. It's so I don't know of anybody who should be in. If they're honest, I can't see how anybody could have any kind of confidence now in how this money is going to be distributed and spent. I mean, unless I'm missing something, but it's as simple as that.
We're all missing something. Dr. Vince Adams, my guest this evening on this special program. Jagdeo wants to hammer home this message, this propaganda, this form of lie, that the appointment of Mr. Dunstan Barrow, and this is nothing personal against Dunstan, is that it is a fair appointment and that PNC people or opposition people should be happy because Mr. Barrow was once a parliamentarian under the PNC, and therefore he's seen as a PNC. So to the international body, he wants to sell that as some acceptable form to have Dunstan on that board. Do you think that holds much water in terms of convincing people that Dunstan Barrow is the best person for that position?
Well, again, this is not about Dunstan, but and that's the thing. It really annoys me when folks like the vice president just insults people's intelligence, to try for us to swallow that type of stuff. I know he's got the guy. You've got to give him credit. The guy has a demeanor that he can probably convince anybody. The way he looks confident and sounds confident, but that's the hallmark of people who lies. You got to appear confident. You got to convince yourself that you're saying what you're saying. But I nothing against Dunstan, but again, I have no confidence in the way the board was selected, because all of the people, that all of the people who are going to be there are going to be under the thumbs of the PPPC. So, I mean, you've got to be really dumb not to realize that. So we know where this is going. So it's very frustrating and demeaning, by the way, for the vice president to be selling this kind of nonsense to people.
Would you feel a bit comfortable if attorney at law, what's his name?
Christopher Ram
was appointed to the board. Would
you absolutely. Hey, there's no question about it. Here you ask, it was a big charade to appear as if, well, you got inclusiveness, and there's no inclusiveness here. I mean, that's the modus operandi, and this is not the only example. This is just another one of those examples. But absolutely, Christopher is more than highly qualified. But guess what? Christopher is one of those critics. So he's one who appears not to be in sync with their line of thinking. But Mark, this here is not, I don't know, it shouldn't surprise anybody, because look at the oil and gas conference. That is probably our biggest conference maybe ever, at least for now. Not a single person from what they say it's not part of their political support was invited, and then they had the nerve to say afterwards that there wasn't anybody qualified from the other side. About 50% of Guyanese, abroad or otherwise, did not qualify, according to them. So it goes on and on. Look, and we can go on and on with everything that, when the way that they're behaving in terms of having input to the decision making and their governments.
Even though that they disrespected the opposition by not inviting them.
Yep.
I was surprised that some of the opposition bought their tickets and went straight in to a place that they were not welcome.
I agree with that. I
don't know what was achieved. But sometimes, even as we speak, some of our folks in the opposition might very well be talking with Exxon too. I don't know. But Dr. Vincent Alexander, Vincent Adams, sorry, sir. My apologies.
Like you swallowing, like you drinking this whatever the honorable vice president drinks.
Whatever I drink and whatever I maybe in the process of the other word that you use, it's not in the context of what Jagdeo does, but I drink a Red Bull. Moving on, though, let us touch on this this cradle to grave. It seems to be a new term, and Jagdeo loves it. Break that down for us, please, sir.
Yeah, Mark. Every time I hear the honorable vice presidency, I just always fall on my chair laughing, because if cradle to grave hits him between the eyes, he wouldn't even know what it is. So here's what the honorable vice president keeps trying to impress folks, that He introduced it. Well, let me tell you something, Mark. Here are the facts. And every
Before we get to the facts,
Mm.
for the layman out there, break it down.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, and so here's what cradle to grave means. When I arrived there, what Exxon was doing, all of the millions of tons of waste, hazardous and toxic waste that was being generated in the ships, they were handing it over, let's say to Tiger Tank and those companies, and they would treat it with whatever treatment, and that was highly questionable also, and they washed their hands from it. So Exxon has no responsibility. And then Tiger Tank would treat it, and all the residues would go into the landfill. So I said, hey, that's not going to work, Exxon. Here's what you've got to do. You have got to be responsible for every single ounce of waste that you generate from the time you generate it to the time it is buried. So you've got to be responsible for all of those operators, those middle operators that you're sending it to, which means you've got to have what is called a cradle to grave program. That was the first time anybody at the EPA or these companies ever heard that term. Okay, so I was the one, as a matter of fact, who wrote the letter directing Exxon to have that program. I was the one who was coaching the staff and coaching the companies as to how to develop such a program. There were several drafts of that document from Exxon before I left. So now for the vice president to come and just roll this off of his tongue and lie to people to say, well, now we have this cradle to grave stuff. That cradle to grave is necessary. And as part of that cradle to grave thing now, Mark, which is very important, what I introduced also is something called a waste acceptance criteria. What was happening when you hand it off to a facility to treat, their equipment, their treatment equipment and methods is supposed to treat the waste they're getting. Well, we don't know that because they might have one set of equipment and you're just dumping the waste over them. It's not capable of treating that. So you've got to have a waste acceptance criteria to say, here, this waste that you're sending here, when you look at the chemical composition, etc., we've got equipment to treat it. The same thing at the burial ground. The burial ground has to have, whatever it's needed to say, okay, yes, we can accept this waste. Whatever component, chemical component it has, we have the capability to accept it. None of that existed so I don't know. For this vice president to come and say now, oh, we've got to create a grave. I mean, it's just laughable, totally laughable.
Laughable.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing, Mark. Here's something else that he said, which is very similar. He says here, oh, we're now treating the water. Well, of course, what Exxon is doing, they're producing all of this toxic water that comes up with oil. It has also radioactivity, by the way, with lead and mercury and everything else, and oil. So he's saying, well, now we're treating the water they never used to treat it before. Well, let me tell you something. If I was Exxon, I would demand an apology from him, because that would mean that Exxon is not following international standards for treating the water. And by the way, the treatment is not for treating the nasty stuff. All the treatment does is to reduce the oil content in the water. So when you treat it, all you do is remove the water, the oil. So that water is dumped. But that's not the issue, Mark. Here's the issue what I think I don't know if he's smart enough to do this, but what it is, I demanded, and not only I had the support from the GGMC, from the Department of Energy, from even his own consultant, the Canadian lady, we all agreed unanimously that water has to go back into the ground. It must not be dumped into the ocean. After the life of the fields, after dumping, hundreds, billions of, maybe tens of billions of water in the ocean, you're going to end up going with that water, even though it's a low concentration, with hundreds of thousands of barrels of pure oil in that water. The water is about 3 times hotter than the water of the ocean. So you can't tell me it's not interfering with the fish and the ecology and everything. That water has to go back into the reservoir. That was something that we demanded. We told Exxon when we were doing the Payara, you have to, this is the group. We said, Exxon, you have to put in the equipment to re-inject that water back into the reservoir. As soon as I left, that was the agreement that we were going to be putting into the Payara. As soon as I left, you know what the guy did? They removed it and allowed Exxon to be dumping the water. So So when he says that they're improving the environment, that's another major lie.
But why do you suppose that he's allowed to get away with all of the lies? You as an expert,
that's what I don't
there.
understand. That's what I don't understand. I think the guy is probably so convincing or so slick that he convinces the media with everything that he says, and he leads them away from the main issue to believe what he's saying. Here's another big one for you. Now he's talking, and the entire media's caught on to this. Oh, we're going to get $2 billion worth of insurance. Well, guess what, Mark? And I've been saying this, I've been shouting to the skies until I get blue. We have a requirement already in the permits. It's a legal document that I negotiated. The first thing he said, well, here's another big lie for you, Mark, and I cannot believe that he's getting away with it. He said that basically that I signed the LISA 1 permit and the LISA 2 permit. Well, I wasn't even there for the LISA 1 permit was signed almost 2 years before I arrived. And guess who signed it, Mark? The same director that is heading the EPA today that he rehired. And when you looked at the liability coverage, there was nothing. There was zero liability coverage. And when I arrived with the LISA 2, I said, absolutely not. You have to put full coverage liability, not insurance. Insurance plus the parent company got to cover everything else over and beyond what the insurance cover. So I negotiated, well, they went out and got a $2.5 billion, all this stuff they're talking about, it doesn't exist. I want the manager who was there before, Rod Henson, to come and say it doesn't exist. Anyway, they went out there and they got this $2.5 billion. I said, wait a minute. The Macondo cost $70 billion. The government again is going to go bankrupt. Who's going to pay the rest? I said, you got to take it back to your parent company. All of that is written into the permits, into the LISA 2 permit and the PIARA permit, based on my language, to say you're going to cover, Exxon is going to cover whatever happened with the first $2.5 billion insurance, and the parent companies of Hess, Exxon, and Sinop, they're going to cover everything over and above. So this $2 billion it's a ruse. It's a gimmick. You can't add. Let me ask you a question, Mark. Could you add anything to what is already unlimited? Yeah. So it's a gimmick. This $2 billion, it's already there. Here's his problem.
But he is saying that there's no evidence that you need.
It's in the permit. What else? It's a legal document. It's written. Section 12.1 says, thou shalt have insurance. Section 12.3 says, the EPA shall continually review this insurance to make sure that it's up to date and Exxon is paying their premium. 12.4 says, you know what 12.4 says? That the parent companies have to cover everything that EEPGL cannot cover. It's there. They signed it. It's a legal document. So what they're trying to distract from is that they are allowing Exxon to not follow the legal requirement. So they're neglectful in not. So that's the issue. $2 billion, it's already there. More than $2 billion is there. Unlimited coverage is there already in the official document. And I invite the public to go read it. Section 12. Read section 12. 12.1 says you have to get insurance. 12.3 says the EPA has to ensure that that the insurance is maintained through your paying your premium. And 12.5 says that the parent company has to cover everything over. So it's there already. This $2 billion it's nonsense. It's irrelevant.
You know what? If I had probably. I would have advised those in the opposition, those guys in the opposition who for the most part are sleeping, is that they should have a full page ad outlining every single thing and the lies of Barra Jagdeo.
Yeah, that would be a good idea.
So that the PPP supporters, even though they also know that Jagdeo and these guys lie to them, that you're able to remind Guyanese about the lies of Jagdeo, everything that you just said there, in a nice full page ad. It doesn't cost much.
Before I leave, here's a nice one for you. This one's going to make you laugh.
Sure.
I don't know if you remember, it might have been last year. Oh, he was going around when he got caught. You remember the flaring? When Exxon was flaring above their limits, and when I was getting out and hammering them, he said, "Oh, don't worry with Vincent. He's the one who's tying my hands." I don't know if he wake up one morning and suddenly dreamt of, how do I get out of this? So he dreamt of a lie. So he gets out there. He said, "Oh, Vince is tying my hands because guess what? He in the EIA, the Bible of the environment coverage of the project says." He puts in the EIA that Exxon has a 14 billion cubic feet of gas allowance that they can flare. They hadn't meet that allowance yet, and he kept when I kept writing. Well, okay, let him and Exxon show where is that in the EIA. So Exxon now, the country manager of Exxon was in a press conference updating the media, and the media said, "Could you show us where that is in the EIA?" You know what the guy said? The country manager said, "I don't know what the vice president is talking about. We never said it." They threw him under the bus. So that was the only way that was stopped. So maybe we ought to start convincing Exxon to speak out, because apparently nobody else can. But the thing is, though, getting back to your question, I do not think that the media is doing a good enough job to follow the issues and really challenge him to check the facts. I don't think that the media is doing such a good job.
But
with the exception of you, of course, with the exception of you who are calling him out.
And you are correct. The media folks just sit there. They don't do any follow-up. They don't challenge him. It's like they're afraid of going into his bad book. Like Chris Gale is in his bad book. Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago is in his bad book now. You're in his dreams. He's dreaming and he's trying to tie you up in his dreams. God in heaven knows why.
I would more than nightmare. I would say nightmare. I know.
God in heaven knows why he's trying to sleep and dream and tie you up. Only God knows. But, do you think Exxon would ever come out, though, to speak the truth on these matters?
Oh, no. If you notice, I don't know if you had seen what I wrote the last time, but I call it mumbo jumbo. And you know what grieves me and really angers me, Mark, is that Exxon believe that Guyanese people are stupid. And of course, people like the vice president are allowing them to believe that, because when they come out, they have this fancy talk as if they're confusing anybody. Well, of course they can't confuse me. I managed these people when I was at the highest level of the U.S. government, Mark. So I know, they when we said jump, they used to ask how high. It's the reverse in Guyana. They're telling us and the EPA how high to jump. This, when I hear the president is saying, "Well, we're making the environment regulations more stringent," it's the reverse, Mark. You know what they're doing, Mark? They're selling out the environment. They're putting it on sale. Here's the other thing that the government, that the vice president is bragging about, that really annoys me. Oh, the coalition never used to charge this $45 per ton of carbon dioxide emissions. Well, no, we never did. You know what we did? We said zero flaring, period. You're not allowed to flare. But you know what? What they went ahead and did, change the permits to say, no, Exxon, you can go ahead and flare as much as you want as long as you can pay for it. Well, let me break that down for you. Now they're saying we're flaring at the minimum amount of 4 million cubic feet of gas per day. So, folks, all the listeners, let me tell you what that means. 4 million cubic feet, and it's $45 per ton that he's bragging about that the coalition never had. You know what the fee that we're getting, the EPA is getting? When you add it up on a daily basis, we're getting about $8,000 per day. Do you know how much they're making? Now, to stop flaring, all you need to do is cut back your production by 4,000 barrels per day, from 120,000 to 116,000. The developer make $500,000 per day, while we put our health, safety, and the environment of our people and our country at risk for 8,000. So that's what he's doing. He's put our environment and the health, safety of our people, he's put it on sale.
All right, you're hearing this for yourselves from Dr. Vincent Adams, the expert in this business. And Jagdeo is just basically spreading propaganda and lies upon lies, and he's allowed to get away with those lies, while many of those in the opposition are silent, and ExxonMobil don't expect them to say anything at all because they're concerned about the billions and billions of barrels of oil and billions of dollars that they will be making, and the hundreds of millions of dollars the taxpayers have to fund for these people to be there and whining and dining and traveling and so forth. Let me ask you this. Obviously, the opposition isn't doing enough when it comes to confronting Exxon on behalf of the Guyanese people. That's just my opinion. Do you share that? And if so, what more can the opposition do?
I think you're right. Of course, I'm out there but I think, I hate to say this, Mark, but somehow we still have some of this colonial mentality in us, where like the big Exxons and them come in and they intimidate us, even though we've got these resources. If we've got the amount of leverage we have with this oil sector, it's unbelievable. So what's happening here? The big Exxon come in and they intimidate. That's what's happening in the EPA. They come in, they say this is what it is. You know how many times I told them when they come in, and as a matter of fact, when I basically tell them how incompetent they were and how when they brought in certain documents, because these are ordinary people, folks. These people they're not smarter than anybody else. They might have gone to university.
Maybe because, and I don't, sorry, Doc, I don't play the race card in terms of who's white, who's black, who's pink, or whatever. But do you think it has to do with it because of the fact that when some folks sit in meetings with Caucasian, those of us who live outside of Guyana, we just don't accept that as being intimidated by people because of their skin color. But you think that takes the opposite effect in Guyana, that when these Caucasian folks walk into a meeting, it doesn't matter their qualifications, that people just look at them, hey, some white men and some white women, and that's a form of intimidation.
I saw that firsthand, Mark. So that's not, and what was interesting? Don't think they didn't try it on me. And I can tell you of a few instances where I basically, send them out to my office. I said, no, you're not going to disrespect me. I said, you're not going to come to this country. We really welcome anybody who wants to come and make money, but you're going to have to treat, what's my standard? Every one of them that walked into my office, Mark, that I will not accept anything less than what you're required to abide with in other countries. You remember when I arrived, the mining, you remember I shut down probably the two biggest mining companies, both foreign companies in Guyana, and everybody were they couldn't believe it. But, they were getting away with, because things that we just would basically turn a blind eye, we get intimidated. But you're right, a lot of it has to do with the color of their skin. And that is why I say it goes back to this colonial mentality, that everything, and then I see it. Here's another good example for you. Of course, I know that but you remember the auditing of the $9.4 billion?
Well, whatever happened to that? And mind you, Doc, it's taxpayers' money. The ordinary folks are funding those
exactly
cats at ExxonMobil.
But here's a good example. The next thing you hear, well, we don't have qualified people. Well, Mark, guess what? I know for a fact a Guyanese company in Houston with highly qualified specialists applied. They applied when the bid request went out. They applied. They submitted their bids, and when they kept calling, the first thing you heard, they can't find the bid packet. Then the next thing you heard, they never heard from them. And then the vice president and others came out and said, well, we never had anybody who were qualified. Well, of course, the guy who was an executive in this company is a Guyanese, but he does not suit, he doesn't look like the kind of person that they wanted. So they lied about them not having qualified people when that company was a highly qualified company. So all this stuff about them, but I'm getting back again. If had it been a white guy who are, probably, sending his application. I'm just speculating here based on the history, but I'm telling you, that was so egregious that a black Guyanese company in Houston, Texas, the oil capital of the world, probably applied to be the auditor for that oil and was ignored completely. Was ignored.
So that $9 billion just gone down the drain. That's
Absolutely.
It. And
the
let's
guy
just
is-
remind the
here's
listeners.
where they're getting themselves. Here's how they tie up themselves. Okay, they say no, we're not renegotiating the contract. Never. We're never negotiating. It's sacrosanct. Well, and then they comes out after the next day and say, well, don't worry, we're gonna do the audit, even though the 2-year that is in the contract that says after 2 years you can't do the audit anymore. Oh no, we're gonna go do it anyway. Well, you can't do it without renegotiating the conditions of the contract. So again, it's another one of those lies to get people going down that rat hole, and then suddenly that goes off the news screen and it's left like that. But the media ought to be bringing those things up all the time, to
It's
keep
just-
it fresh.
it-
But that's why they get away with it. The way that they're operating, Mark, is that, well, the news may be hot today, but it's going to disappear off the thing, the next day. And then they're going to come up with something like this, $2 billion. And I'm begging, Mark, and if you can help me, people need to stop talking about this $2 billion when we've got many times over the $2 billion already as the law written into the permits. Stop talking about this $2 billion that they want you to talk about.
Doc, you are so
Enforce the
correct.
law. Your job is to enforce the law.
We're
If you can't
talking about
enforce
$2
what you
billion.
have before, you're going to enforce anything new.
Yeah, we're talking about $2 billion, and we work up our energy in areas every single day on one particular thing. Meanwhile, billions upon billions of dollars being wasted in the country, and on
Like the
pullbacks
$9
of
billion,
the
like the $9
taxpayers.
billion that we haven't even audited.
All of these manner of things. Speaking of which, I've noticed our energy in the area of allegations that a lawyer spat in the face of a special corporal of police, I believe. If that is accurate and the evidence is there, then that individual should be charged. We cannot.
Absolutely.
That is unacceptable. But for days now, we spend most of our energy on those matters, and it's not to say that we shouldn't spend our energy. And that is what the point I'm making is. That is what the PPP loves. Distract us whilst they're stealing billions upon billions of dollars. Distract us on fighting for the police to charge an individual, or for the police to properly investigate those things. And I do think the police should investigate that matter. And if it is proven to be true, then that lawyer should be brought to justice. I say that as a sidetrack because we have to focus our energy in not just one particular area, but we have to look where the money and the billions of dollars being wasted. And that's just my 2 cents.
A good example, Mark. I just read in the newspaper just a few days ago, where they're going to tighten up now on the traffic laws, to impose more fines. Those little petty little fines, when you've got Exxon ripping us off billions of dollars, you're not enforcing the law with Exxon violating the laws in front of your face.
They can't. They can't touch Exxon. Exxon is actually the government of Guyana. Exxon is actually the opposition of Guyana. That it seems as though no one in the PPPC regime, no one in the opposition could confront Exxon. Am I correct?
I mean, I know you don't have to guess that. Just go by what you see. Especially Mark, here's another big fib for you. Especially when the opposition party, when they were the governing party, when they're in opposition, what did they say? Oh, you wait until I get into office. You watch it. Renegotiate. This is the worst contract ever. And they slammed that contract, and renegotiation has to be on the table. And as soon as they got in there, an Exxon probably called them and wag their fingers at them, that just disappear. So I'm hoping I'm hoping that we do not see the same thing, when the opposition gets into office. But as far as I'm concerned, the opposition needs to start right now and standing up for the principle of representing the people of Guyana. It's unfair with what we're currently having, and not standing up for Exxon coming in and breaking the law more than anything else. They're breaking the laws of the country. And I think that's one of the things that I think is happening here, is even maybe the media is probably a little bit scared too, and they're frightened to go after the government in certain areas, or even Exxon, because somehow it's such a small society, their livelihood and their family's livelihood would be jeopardized, and those type of things. It's a bad situation.
And that to me is a bad rap, because who are the ones that feel the brunt of it is the supporters. When you have politicians, whether those in office or outside of office, think about themselves and their position and whatever salaries they may be getting that might come up into jeopardy if they confront Jagdeo and his lies. So oftentimes it is just ignore it. Or if they go out there and protest Exxon or the Energy Expo and all of these things, let's not do that, because it's going to make the coalition look bad. I see that the same, not just when I say coalition, I'm not singling out one party, because the party of which you belong to, the AFC, also seem to be silent.
And I try to speak out. Hopefully I represent, I'm being forceful enough to represent them in this here. And of course, I don't take directions from anybody, basically. I speak my mind. Even when I was at the EPA, I criticized the government I worked for, by the way. I was very open. The media can tell you that. Transparent. I shared everything, all information I got on a daily basis with them. When we were doing bad, I said we did bad. When we were doing good, we did good. But here's another intimidating or a threat, as far as I'm concerned, that came from the president. Is one of his when
you say the president, you mean
vice
the
president? Sorry, the vice president. Well, maybe it's not a slip of the tongue, but nevertheless, when in the EPA, obviously it's gone back to where it was before I arrived, where it's anything goes. The people there's an exodus of all the good people who are leaving, and so there are myriads every single day. You cannot open the newspaper without them getting criticized because of the decisions that they're making. It's become totally politicized. You know what the vice president said in a video? I guess in a video, he said that I and everybody else are criticizing the head of the EPA, and it's not the head of the EPA, it's EPA, by the way, because he's Indian. So he's playing this race card to sow the seed of racial acrimony among the people, when he, as the vice president of the country, should be bringing the nation, this all one Guyana, together. I mean, it's shameful.
We can't, Dr. Vince Adams, those of us who have lived under a bad governance and the dictatorship of Jagdeo, the evil-minded attitude that this man has, a very vindictive, bitter kind of person. We'd understand that he is not the sort of person that has that sort of credentials to bring any sort of unity to the people of Guyana, none whatsoever. And sometimes, I'm reading some of the comments, people take umbrage to when folks are on this show and they address Jagdeo as honorable. Oh my gosh, it turns our stomach up. Dr. Vince Adams, before we go, is there something that we haven't discussed? Because I know you have a lot, you will be talking a lot on David Hines' show on Tuesday. So let me give David Hines.
I've got interestingly enough, I think the name of the guy who called in, I wanted to know, well, what did the coalition did? Well, I can speak for the EPA. When I took over the EPA, it was dysfunctional. I mean, that came directly from all the staff members. It was dysfunctional. I turned it into an agency within a short 2 years, by the way, including the COVID year, into an agency where it was dysfunctional to one where it gains respectability, transparency, and everything that was required. You talk about the lawlessness. That agency, when I took it over, and it was the same Mr. Parshram, who was hired back by this government, He was there 2 years before I arrived. When I arrived there, we had a single vehicle for all of the officers, a single working vehicle that is, roadworthy vehicle, to take the officers all over the country for them to do permits and inspections. When I left, in that short 2 years, how many we had? We had 8 new brand vehicles for them to go. We had over 600 permits, Mark, 600 operations that were operating without permits. Which is lawlessness. Within 1 year, we brought all 600 of those operations into compliance and collected over $150 million that we used to buy the vehicles, the new brand vehicles that the officers can go out and do their work. We increased the staff within 1 year by 20%. We never had an engineer. We hired 20 engineers and scientists, top level folks. When I left, what happened? All of those are gone. What was interesting, Mark, when they decided to send me and leave, what was the when in the letter they said, "Well, go and leave." They said they wanted to see the list of the 20 people the names of the 20 people that I hired, which was top-notch engineers, etc. Well, I know what they were looking for, Mark. You know what they were looking for. They were looking for what are the names, and I'm sure they were shocked to see that there wasn't any discrimination, and they were surprised to see that, as a matter of fact, the majority of the names were not what they were expecting to see. So they thought that they tried to judge everybody by their standards. We also set up 2 new offices. Everybody had to come to Georgetown to go from Essequibo and all. We set up 2 brand new offices in Linden and the quarantine.
You're talking about the EPA, the environmental.
EPA, that's right.
And not only
EPA.
that, the passport offices too, in Borbice, in Latin, in Linden. Lots of things. So I don't know.
So we had training. We did not even have, believe this or not, imagine all those. We had 2,000 operators with permits. We did not even have a filing system, Mark, where somebody comes in, they're coming with their permit, but we don't have a copy. All of that was set up. We set up. It was a customer focused organization that it became. The culture changed. We set up a 24-hour hotline, Mark, where anybody can call in, even anonymously. And if they see something, or if they see an officer doing something they're not supposed to do, they can call in anonymously, or anything that they can call in. We never had those. So and this only happened in less than the 2 years that I was there, Well, guess what happens after I left? They tore all of that down. We had a training program, Mark, where the EPA came up with what we call a study leave policy, because capacity building in Guyana is a big deal. We don't have almost anything, where we were going to sponsor employees to go for training, but they've got to come back and serve for 4 or 5 years. Do you know what happened when I left? They said, well, no, that was illegal. I know how that could have been illegal. And they said, they told the staff that they are on their own when it comes to training. That's the kind of...
Lots and lots of developments, lots and lots of progress under the coalition. We can go on and on, not just the EPA, but also housing. Well, the guy who headed the agriculture ministry, I have my views on that, even though he's a part of your party, the AFC. I have my view about the agricultural sector. More should have been done. But when you look at infrastructure and all these manner of things, we can't. For 23 years, the PPP destroyed that country, and for 2 years, we see how they're governing. When we compare to what were the progress under the coalition, the PPP blaming pandemic and so forth, had it not been for the COVID-19 hospital, I believe thousands upon thousands of people would have died because of the negligence of that corrupt, illegal regime that is in office under questionable circumstances. Of course, Dr. Vince Adams, I know that you will be back, but you will be on Dr. David Hines' program this coming Tuesday. In your closing remarks, though, I'm a bit concerned. Though, that the opposition seemed to be afraid of Exxon the leadership of the opposition seem to be afraid of Exxon. They're not speaking out on issues, save and except maybe one and two things that's probably more of a beneficial to them, and not necessarily their support base. They're very quiet on a lot of issue. No difference than the previous leadership that they criticized. But in your closing remarks, talk to the opposition as well, sir.
Yes, I'm hoping, and of course now we're going through a transition, Mark, in changing leadership in the opposition. So let's wait and see what happens when everything is in place, when Mr. Norton goes to Parliament as the opposition leader, and let's see what's going to happen. When he put its all the parliamentary members together, and we know who they are, and the coalition hopefully are going to start having some. They've already started talking and coming up with a strategy in terms of policies, etc. And this has to be, Mark. It has to be at the top of the agenda, especially, Mark, especially since now the opposition doesn't have anybody on that end, or on that the group, the National Resource Fund team. We have got to strategize now as to how will we have input to represent the people, to make sure that the money is not wasted or goes into people's pockets. So this area is important, Mark. So let's hold tight for a little bit. But of course, that's not going to stop me. I'm gonna speak out regardless. I don't have to be in sync with the opposition, to be honest.
Some people might argue that the people have been holding tight for too long. Hold tight.
Yeah.
Somebody's saying here, transition taking too long. As we would say in Guyana, she's saying transition taking too long. We might say transition taking too long, man. It's taking too long. And this is not to attack personally the opposition and the leadership.
Right.
But I agree with the people that taking too long. They seem to be afraid to confront certain issues. They no longer want boots on the ground. They seem to have a different strategy. They meet with Sarah Lynch. They might be comfortable with what Sarah is saying, and they probably had a meeting with Exxon Mobil. I don't know. And I don't know whether the people in the opposition are getting a good bang for their dollar. I don't know. But
we've got to shed this inferiority complex, Mark. We've got to understand the power of the leverage that we have, especially over Exxon. Exxon cannot do without Guyana. They cannot do without Guyana. So
look, they walked in there. They got a sweetheart deal. Absolutely. From the PPP. They got a sweetheart deal from the coalition. Everybody's happy, save and except the people of the country. The people in Region 10 are not happy. They're not getting no goddamn money, no return for the oil. Right? The billions of dollars, they're not. The people in Region 6, the same thing. The people throughout the country, the same thing. But the leadership of the PPP and the coalition seem to be the only one, for the most part, the only ones who are happy, and they're not going to bell the cat. They're not going to say anything. They're going to remain as quiet as they are. So let us not fool ourselves. All of them are comfortable with it, Dr. Vincent Adams. All of them. I'm sorry I'm getting a little emotional. I should not get emotional.
No. Hey, I get like that sometimes when because we all, especially, we all have our country at heart, and it's very, very painful when we see, our country being taken advantage of, and especially people like ourselves, Mark, who've been abroad and have been exposed to what happens abroad, to see that they cannot do those things with other countries, with other developed countries like the United States. They cannot do the type of things like break the laws of the United States. But they're coming to Guyana and taking advantage of it. So that hurts me more than anything else, that they're doing that. But hey, you know what? I'm not even mad at Exxon. I'm mad at the government for allowing that to happen, because they're the ones who can stop it. But
our leaders, leaders could stop it. The coalition promised to reveal the contract for, what is it, the Stabroek and
Yeah.
The Kaito blocks, and then they got into office. There was nothing. They couldn't do it. All manner of things. And those two blocks, Dr. Vince Adams, those two, I believe it's the Kaito and the Stavro block, that were given when Parliament was prorogued by the minority president, Donald Ramotar, given away in matter of weeks before the elections to friends and cronies of the PPP. The coalition promised that they were going to rectify that on behalf of the people of Guyana. They got in there, they didn't rectify it. Instead, they grew ants nest with vagabonds and traitors and so forth, right? That brought them down. And people who were part of the regime that were more flat-foot hustlers were more concerned about themselves than about the people of the country. Let's face reality. Mark, a lot of times, and both of those two blocks costing Guyanese taxpayers billions of US dollars. Oh man, both of them.
Mark. The thing is, you and I, we grew up in Linden, and we didn't grow up with a silver spoon in our mouth by any means whatsoever. So we relate.
I didn't grow up in a silver spoon in my mouth, but I grew up. I was born and I raised as a little boy, but I moved away in silver tongue.
Yep.
Right. Not a silver spoon, but silver tongue. Right. Good.
But so maybe a lot of our politicians needs to have that kind of a grounding to feel the way that that we feel. It's okay for you to advance and go and get rich but you should never forget where you came from, and to relate to what those people are experiencing and try to help them to bring them out of that morass that they're experiencing, because you were there at one time. But that doesn't happen these days, apparently, with the politicians. It's all about themselves, and forget about anybody else. It's about for themselves.
Dr. Vince Adams, thank you so much. And we're no longer hearing anything about boots on the ground. No more boots on the ground. No more this body must go, that body must go. That was it. Look, it's Friday evening, man. If there's anybody out there, it's Sunday. If there's anybody out there, you can tell how I'm feeling, how emotional I am. Maybe a pastor, a reverend, somebody out there can just pray for me. Please just pray for me. I'm running out of patience with these guys. Not so long ago, we were hearing every night, boots on the ground, boots on the ground. It's kind of like it was ringing my ears. Left, right, the government boots. And now look, the boots right there. There's nobody there wearing the boots. Nobody wants to bell the cat. Nobody believes in protest. It's a thing of the past for these folks. They run into meeting, they meet and they talk to some of these Caucasian people, and they're all satisfied right now that the people love us and the people want us to take over and the people want us to this. Come on, we have lived overseas for too long. We understand. Dr. Vince Adams, thank you so much for your time, man. Thank you for explaining.
Anytime, Mark. It's always a joy to be on your show, and more importantly is to really let the people know what's really going on. Rather than listening to alternative facts all the time.
Dr. Vince Adams, thank you so much, my fellow Lindener. First Alley, Poker Street.
That's right, Poker Street.
Poker Street. Thank you so much for your time, though. Appreciate it.
Anytime, Mark. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
All right, Dr. Vince Adams there. Sorry, guys. I noticed some folks said that they will pray for me. I'll just pause for 30 seconds so that you can pray for me. Please do. I'm getting a little emotional. I'm getting a little bit worked up. I'm losing some sort of patience with the folks who have promised boots on the ground, who promised that they'll change the world. And I don't know. I just don't know. Can you pray for me, please? Can you pray for the opposition so that they could start listening to people and they wouldn't get the impression that they know it all and their strategy is always the best strategy? And I don't know. Savitri Prasad, can you pray? I don't know if you're not because of your name though, but whether you're a Hindu, whether you are a Christian, I don't know. If you're a Christian, pray for me, please. Somebody right now. Even if you are a Hindu and you want to pray, you just pray, man. Just something. Tumewa mata chapita tumewa bandu. Right? That's a Hindi prayer, or a Christian prayer, something, or a Muslim prayer, or chant for me if you're Rasta. IVI. So Lasii. Guyana, yeah? Guyana. I don't know. Let's see here what Grandma. Grandma Morna. Hi, Grandma Morna. And that's correct. I'm praying that Guyana becomes a real country. Thank you so much, Morna. Thank you. Nikki Innes and all the people, just pray. Yeah, but I see there's a new Charles just prayed, Lord Jesus, touch your son, comfort his heart. Hallelujah. It's Sunday. We can do a little preaching before we go, right? Because, there's a part in the Bible that says, what is it? Faith without work is what? Death. So a lot of times, I don't know. I just don't know. But remember, though, before we go, remember there's a part of the scripture that says in Ephesians 6:10 that we struggle against not flesh and blood, but against principalities and wickedness. Wickedness. That's what's happening in Guyana now. Wickedness in dark places. Wickedness in dark places. Vashti, how are you? God, peace and blessings to you, Mark, and all, and to all. And same to you, Vashti. Right? We have to stop being afraid to call a spade, whether it's these corrupt individuals in the regime or whether it's those sleeping guys in the opposition. The sleeping guys in the opposition, because that's what they're doing. They're sleeping. They're not going to put boots on the ground. They're not going to go out and protest for you. They're not going to go out and protest against ExxonMobil so that we can get the billions of dollars to do the roads and to fix our electricity that the PPP promised since 1992 to have it fixed, and that they had a company coming in from Texas to fix it, and all manner of lies. We can't sit and expect them to do it, right? It's just not going to happen. And it's unfortunate that just the other day, maybe 3 days ago, Jagdeo in Essequibo was talking about 28 years of the PNC. But what about the 23 plus this 2 years that they've been installed? What about that? What have they achieved? What's the progress? Other than hundreds of people that were killed, slaughtered under the PPP regime. Thousands upon thousands of kilos of cocaine shipped out of the country under the PPPC regime. Schools run down under the PPPC regime. Health sector died under the PPPC regime. Roads broken up. Look at the highway, the Linden highway, broken up as a result of Jagdeo and that cable, that long cable. God in heaven knows from Brazil border, running it through Linden, straight down the Soosdijk Highway, broke up the goddamn roads around the country. God in heaven knows where that end of cable would have been plugged into. We can just imagine, right? But billions of dollars wasted on that. Lots and lots of money's wasted, time wasted. Look at the University of Guyana. They got into office in 1992, October 5th. And what they did, they removed free education at the university level. They removed it for 23 years. Just imagine the amount of people who would have been educated properly. People like Jagdeo, people like Irfan Ali, and so forth. People like Clement Rohi, or even Guyanese critic. Could have gone there, but that would have been a heck of a Herculean task for critic to walk on the stairways or the corridors of the University of Guyana. I've got to go, though. I've got to go. It's Sunday evening. I'll find something else to do, but keep praying not only for me, but pray for the country. My heart bleeds for that country. And you guys know that, right? You know that. And even when I see those in the opposition who are sleeping, and who are bickering amongst themselves, it breaks my heart. It does. Whoever wants to get vexed with that in the opposition, so be it. Because we have a job here at 107.1 FM. We'll continue to do our job. And we thank those of you out there who support us. We can't say that the opposition, they support us. They don't. They just don't support us. Because if this station could die a natural death, the impression that I get from the opposition is that they would love that to become a reality. And so we thank you all for whatever support that you give to us. We are thankful for that. We'll talk some other time. God bless you. Tomorrow morning, Gabby will be on. Her guest, I believe, is Elson Lowe.